Before we dive into the story, I want to say I've done my best to make this coherent and engaging. Most of the original posts from this person were scattered, and many have been deleted from the subreddits. I found out that my wife was having an affair with her boss in our own bed, so I hired his ex-wife's lawyer to make sure he paid for what he did to both of our families. D-Day was 10 days ago, day 129. I'll never forget it. It was the day after our anniversary. Since then, I've been reading a lot of posts on this sub. It's helped to know I'm not alone in this. Now I think writing down what happened might help me too. This is going to be long, but I believe the details matter. I've been replaying everything over and over in my mind every single day. Our story. I've been with my wife for 29 years, married for 26. I'm 51, she's 49. We have 2 adult kids. Our son is 24, our daughter is 22. We met in college, dated, fell in love, got married, and I truly believed we had a great marriage. We did a lot together, always talked things through, and supported each other in our careers. We even had a great sex life, not as frequent as when we were younger, but still passionate. She works in IT, and I run a landscaping business I started right after graduation, now with 75 employees. Since COVID, she's been working from home more, and we've been planning for me to slowly step away from daily operations so we could travel and enjoy more time together. Our kids are grown and doing well. Looking back now, there were none of the red flags I've read about. No strange texts, no secretive phone behavior, no new clothes or sudden changes, no odd late nights at work. If she went out, it was with friends or family, and someone always told me afterward that I should have come along. I liked staying home, tinkering in my shop. She always came home early. To say I was blindsided doesn't even come close. D-Day. A week before, I had booked a weekend at a romantic bed and breakfast owned by friends. Our state had reopened, and there was a winter festival happening that weekend. I left work early to surprise her and tell her to pack a bag. We were going away for our anniversary. I pulled into the driveway and saw a strange car parked there. Immediately, I knew. I can't explain it, but I just knew. I hoped I was wrong, but deep down, I wasn't. I sat there for a long time, unsure what to do. Should I leave and talk to her later? Pretend I didn't see anything? I was shaking so hard I couldn't see straight. When I face something uncomfortable at work, I usually tell myself, man up, just get it over with. Suddenly, the shaking stopped. I felt calm. No idea how, because inside, I was falling apart. I snuck in through the back door. Our black lab was lying there with this sad expression like he already knew. Usually he jumps all over me, but not that day. Man, I love that dog. He stayed put as I quietly made my way upstairs. When I reached the top, I heard what was happening in our bedroom. I got to the door, pushed it open, and there he was, her boss, on top of my wife. I stood there for a second, then yelled, "Surprise!" What followed was such a mess it would have been laughable if it didn't hurt so damn much. He scrambled to get off her, but got caught up in the sheets. My wife was screaming, oh my God," while trying to cover herself. But she couldn't, because he was still tangled up. He finally rolled out of bed and started looking for his clothes, which were on the far side of the bed, the same spot where my own clothes usually ended up. For some reason, that detail just hit me hard. Before he could grab them, I got there first. My wife kept sobbing, "I'm so sorry," over and over again. I backed up to the doorway and just stood there. He was now standing beside the bed, completely naked. I pulled the big easy chair from the corner, set it by the door, and sat down. He asked me for his clothes. I said no, and tossed him my wife's robe from behind the door. Then he started walking toward me. Even at 51, I'm in solid shape. 6'3", 240 pounds from years of gym work and landscaping. I stepped forward, locked eyes with him, and warned, "Take one more step, and this ends badly for both of us." I paused, then added with steel in my voice, "You'll be in the hospital." I'll be in jail. So why don't you take a seat? He hesitated, then sat down. My wife was still sobbing into a pillow. The room went painfully quiet. Finally, he broke the silence with a shaky voice. What now? I replied, I have no idea. My wife wiped her face and sat up. After a long pause, I pulled out my phone. You're both going to tell me everything, I said, and I'm recording it. They looked at each other. My wife asked, what do you mean by everything? Everything, I repeated. How it started, how long it's been going on, where, when, hotels, dinners, all of it, she insisted. This is the only time. I yelled, bullshit! You don't bring someone into our bed unless this has been going on for a while. If you lie to me again, I'm walking out that door and hiring a divorce lawyer. She started crying again. For the next 10 or 15 minutes, it all came out. They'd been having an affair for over 9 months. It started with him flirting. Then, he asked her out for lunch, and she said yes. A few drinks later, they were in a hotel room. That same night, she came home to me like nothing happened. She swore it had been tearing her apart, and she wanted to tell me, but didn't know how. Again, I called BS. If it was tearing you apart, it wouldn't have been so easy to keep it going. They even attended a week-long work convention, the same one I used to go to with her. She told me company policy had changed and spouses weren't allowed anymore. I believed her. I put my phone away and let the silence stretch again. Then an idea hit me. I reached for his clothes, found his phone, and asked for the passcode. To my surprise, he gave it to me. I started scrolling through his phone. I found pictures of a woman I figured was his wife. What's her name? I asked. Carol, he replied. She was pretty. Not as pretty as my Ashley, but still beautiful. I found more pictures of kids, 3 of them. Finally, a family photo with all of them. I held up the phone. Beautiful family, I said. Why throw it all away for a roll in the sheets with my wife? He replied, what do you mean, throw it all away? You really think Carol isn't going to find out? He froze. How would she? I said, because I'm calling her. Right now. He jumped up. No, you can't, my wife screamed. Please, don't do this to him. That broke me. Don't do this to him, I shouted. You've destroyed me, us, our family, our friends, our future. You shattered my heart. And you're worried about him. I was shaking again, trying to hold it together, but I couldn't anymore. I slumped into the chair and began sobbing. She tried to come near me, but I looked up and said, stay the hell away from me. Eventually, I calmed down and glanced back at the phone. He was still standing there, pleading. Please don't. I'm begging you, he said. I swear I'll tell her myself. Yeah, right, I muttered. He kept begging as I found her number. Then I had a better idea. FaceTime. That would hit harder. She picked up quickly. Who are you? She asked with a pleasant smile. Is my husband okay? For now, I replied. But he won't be in a minute. I flipped the screen and showed him standing in my wife's floral robe, right there in my bedroom. I believe you know him, I said. I panned the camera to show the room, then to my wife, who was scrambling to hide beneath the covers. Too late. That's my wife, I said. I came home early and found them in bed together. She burst into tears. He immediately started his, honey, I'm so sorry. It was just once act, I cut in. Don't believe a word. It's been going on for over 9 months. I've recorded everything they just confessed. I told her I'd text her my number and that she should send me her email. I'd send her the video. I handed him the phone. I overheard her say, when you get home, there will be a bag packed outside. If you try to come in, I'm calling the police. Then she hung up. I tossed him his clothes. He got dressed and left. Now that he was gone, it was just the 2 of us. My wife looked at me, her face streaked with tears. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I never meant to hurt you. Can you forgive me? Then came the line I'd been waiting to hear and dreading all at once. It didn't mean anything. The same tired excuse, the same cheater's script. And somehow, It still hurt like hell. I looked at her and said, "Pack a bag and get the hell out of my house." I went downstairs and poured myself a drink. I was sitting on the couch when she came down the stairs. She started to walk toward me, but I stopped her. "Just stop," I said firmly. She asked if we could talk about it. I replied, "Maybe, just maybe, but not now." Then I told her, "It's going to be really hard not to go looking for a divorce lawyer." She started crying again. I could see it in her eyes. She was about to say, "I love you," but I cut her off. "Don't you dare say that right now, because I don't think I'll ever believe it again." She cried harder as she turned and walked out the door. Watching her leave, tears streaming down her face, knowing that my entire life was walking out with her, I collapsed. I fell to the floor, shaking, sobbing uncontrollably. I don't even know how long I stayed like that. Eventually, I managed to pull myself together enough to sit upright, still crying. I called my best friend, tried to speak but couldn't. I started crying again and couldn't get a single word out. He asked, "What's going on?" But I couldn't respond. Then he asked, "Are you at home?" I grunted a soft, "Yeah, I'm on my way," he said. 30 minutes later, he was at my place. I was still crying when he arrived. I handed him my phone. It was already queued up to the video. He sat down and started watching it. I couldn't bear to listen again, so I walked to the kitchen and poured us both a drink. But when he came into the kitchen, he took the glasses from my hands and dumped them in the sink. "This isn't going to help you," he said. "You can't stay here alone tonight. Go pack a bag." I didn't argue. I went upstairs, grabbed some clothes, and came back down. He had my lab on a leash, ready to go. We drove to his house. That was 10 days ago, and I still feel like complete garbage. I know this is long. Thanks for reading this far. I'll try to update more later. Update again. Let me say how truly grateful I am for all the support and advice I've received from this community. I owe you more than I can ever repay. All I can do is say thank you and try to reply to as many comments as I can. Your encouragement has meant everything. Some of you have said that the way I handled the confrontation shows strength, but the truth is, I don't feel strong at all. I'm just going through the motions. Still, all of your guidance is helping me move forward. Now, the reason I posted in the first place, because I needed help, and I got more than I ever expected. I was told my first post was removed because it focused too much on storytelling and not enough on asking for support. I'll try to keep this shorter, but I believe details matter. If you didn't catch the original post, I've been told it's made its way to YouTube. Use the title to search, I guess. I'm beginning to realize that there's no way to come back from this. I'm about 99% sure about the decision I need to make. Still, I can't stop thinking about how I'd be throwing away 29 years of our lives. Even now, I can't bring myself to type STBXW. I still refer to her as my wife. What the hell is wrong with me? Help. The night of D-Day, she went to stay with our son and his wife. He called me later, asking what had happened and why I kicked Mum out. I told him that she needed to explain it, or I would. He knows now. I stayed at my best friend's place. Our daughter had been planning to dog sit, and when she got home and found the dog gone, she eventually tracked us down. She came over to the house, saw the dog, and asked what was going on. When I told her, the look on her face, it hurt worse than walking in on my wife and her boss. That expression shattered me. She left with the dog and later brought her fiancé to stay at the house. Saturday morning, I told my best friend I was heading to the cabin for a few days, asked if he could drive me home so I could pack up. He agreed, said it was a good idea. I packed my stuff, grabbed the dog, and left. I spent that weekend in the woods, walking with my dog, splitting firewood. It was both therapy and a workout. Stayed Saturday and Sunday, drove back home Monday. That Monday, I started making calls. Bank, credit cards, Then I called the lawyer I use for my business, asked if he could refer someone for a divorce case. He recommended someone. I called her office and scheduled a meeting for Thursday. When we met, I played the recording. She listened quietly, then told me she was extremely confident in the case. I hired her on the spot. I asked if I should notify my wife's boss's HR department. She advised we hold off on that for now. Back at home, I was sleeping on the couch. Couldn't bring myself to enter the bedroom, only went in to grab clothes. That Friday, my son called, told me his mum couldn't stay with them anymore. She was making things hard for him and his wife. Asked if there was any way she could come home. I hadn't spoken to her since D-Day, but I gave in and said yes. She came back Saturday, and I went. Right back to the cabin. It was freezing, but I managed. Monday, I went straight to the office. Everyone there loves my dog. He gets completely spoiled by the staff. That evening, I finally went home. And when I saw my wife, all I could see was the image burned into my mind from D-Day, her and her boss in our bed. I honestly don't know if I'll ever be able to unsee that. Got any suggestions? Because I've got nothing. We didn't speak. I changed clothes and went down to my basement office, trying to stay busy and keep my mind off things. Eventually, I just ended up watching TV in the basement. She came downstairs and asked if we could talk about it. I told her, "Not yet. I'm not ready. Please just leave me alone while you're here." I fell asleep in the recliner. The next morning, I got up early, went to the gym, showered there, and headed to work. Came home late that night. That was my routine for the rest of the week. Friday, my HR manager asked how I was holding up. I had already confided in her about everything, and she had been nothing but supportive. She looked at me and said, "You need to stop sleeping on chairs and couches. Go buy a new bed." It hit me. She was right. I took whatever was left in our joint account, her half included, and went to buy myself a new bed. Delivery was set for Saturday. The next day, I went to the office and waited for the call that they'd be arriving in 30 minutes. I stopped to pick up a couple of subs for the delivery guys and parked down the street to wait. When they pulled up, I greeted them and handed them lunch. I also gave each of them $25 and asked for a small favor. I told them not to load up the old mattress just yet. Could they come back for it later instead? Lean it against the tree by the street plaza. They looked confused, so I told them, "Give me 5 minutes. When you come in, it'll all make sense." Honestly, I had considered setting the old mattress on fire in the driveway, but the mess wasn't worth it. I went upstairs and started stripping the bedding. As I did, a thought popped into my head, something I needed to do. I grabbed a can of blaze orange spray paint that we used to mark properties at work and scrawled, in giant letters across the mattress, "My wife cheated on me in this bed." The guys came in, and my wife asked what was going on. I told her, "I can't sleep in that bed anymore. You bought me a new one." She looked annoyed but said nothing and went back downstairs. The new bed got set up. The guys left the old mattress right where I asked. Later, my wife told me the delivery guys had left the old one in the yard. "They're coming back for it," I said, trying not to laugh. Pretty sure she still doesn't know, but the whole neighborhood does. Then came Valentine's Day. She tried to be romantic, tried to initiate intimacy. I told her, "I wouldn't fuck you now if you were the last woman on earth." She snapped back, "We don't fuck. We make love," clearly upset. I replied coldly, "We haven't made love since you started screwing your boss." She looked stunned, like she expected me to forget. I can't understand what's going through her head. Right then, I figured it was time. I told her to sit down in the living room. I asked, "What do you want to do? Are we actually trying to fix this, or should we just divorce and move on?" I don't know why I even gave her the option. Maybe I'm just stuck in the loop of not wanting to throw away 29 years of our life. Somebody, please talk me out of this. She said she's willing to do whatever it takes, begged me to forgive her. I told her, "You need to come clean, to everyone. Start with your parents, then my mom. Tell them everything, including how I found out. Our kids don't know the full details yet, just that she cheated. They're coming over tonight. I'll update you later on how that goes. That's where I am now. Still numb. Still fighting the overwhelming urge to go knock her boss's teeth in. Still needing advice. When does this get better? Or is this just what life looks like now? Here's a short update, since some of my posts were taken down. The night of D-Day, I stayed at my best friend's house. My wife went to our son's place. Both of our kids know she had an affair, but not the specifics. That Saturday morning, I drove to our cabin with the dog, stayed till Monday. Monday, I went into the office and started making calls. Bank, credit cards, everything. Called the lawyer I use for my business and asked for a referral. He gave me a name. I reached out, met with her on Thursday. She said all the right things and seemed sharp. I hired her. I also talked to my HR manager again. She's not just a co-worker. We've been close professionally for years. I told her everything. She recommended someone for individual counseling. I made the appointment. I've been to 2 sessions so far, and it's helping. The Friday after D-Day, my son called and said it was getting awkward with his mum living in their small apartment. Asked if she could come back home. I gave in. She came back on Saturday, looking broken. But I was already heading back to the cabin, just to prove how badly I didn't want to be around her. It was freezing that weekend, below zero every day, with nighttime lows dipping between -20 and 25. Brutal weather, but it suited my mood. Monday, I drove straight to the office. Everyone there loves my lab and he gets spoiled rotten. I stayed late, dreading going home. When I finally walked in, I couldn't even look at her. I headed straight to the basement and turned on the TV, trying to distract myself. She came down and asked if we could talk. I told her I wasn't ready. Please just leave me alone while... You're here, I said. Friday, my HR manager checked in on me again. How are you holding up? She asked. Lousy, I told her. I've been sleeping on the couch or the recliner in the basement. She suggested I get a new bed. Honestly, it was the first great idea I'd heard all week, so I went out and bought one. Delivery was set for Saturday. I had thought about burning the old mattress, like some people suggested, but I didn't want to deal with the cleanup. Instead, I went to the office on Saturday morning and waited for the call that the truck would arrive in 30 minutes. Before they showed up, I picked up 2 subs for the delivery guys and parked nearby. When they arrived, I met them out front and handed them lunch, plus $20 each. I need a favor, I said. Leave the old mattress propped up against the tree near the street and come back for it at the end of the day. They looked confused. Give me 5 minutes, I told them. When you see it, you'll get it. I went back inside and stripped the old bedding. As I pulled the sheets off, something clicked. I knew exactly what I had to do. I grabbed a can of blaze orange spray paint, the kind we use at work to mark properties, and wrote in big block letters across the mattress. My wife cheated in our bed. The delivery guys followed through, just as I asked, and left it leaning against the tree. Later, my wife noticed and said, "They forgot to take the old one away." "They're coming back for it," I replied, trying hard not to laugh. I don't think she realizes what I did, but the entire neighborhood definitely knows. Then came Valentine's Day. She tried her best to be sweet, made a nice dinner, which I didn't touch. Then she tried to initiate intimacy. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I wouldn't fuck you if you were the last woman on earth." She snapped back, "We don't fuck, we make love," clearly trying not to cry. I answered, "We haven't made love since you decided to fuck your boss." The look on her face. Honestly, I can't even describe it. Shock, hurt, maybe even realization. She fled to the kitchen, trying not to break down. I figured now was as good a time as any to have the conversation. I called her into the living room and told her to sit down. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Should we just divorce and move on? Or are we going to actually try to fix this?" Yeah, I know. Stupid question. I should have just ended it. But I guess I'm still hung up on the idea of throwing away 29 years. Please, someone talk me out of this. She said she'd do anything to make it right. Anything. Begged me to give her a chance. Said she wanted to fix it. I told her the only way we could even think about starting over was if she came clean to the rest of our family, all of them, and told them everything, including the part where I walked in on her and her boss in our bed. She agreed. That was the last update before it got removed, post 217. That night, her parents, her sister, and my mum came over. My dad's been gone for 3 years now. Our son, daughter, and my brother-in-law Bill were all there too. We all sat in the living room. I made sure to sit as far away from her as I could. Everyone kept asking what was wrong. "We love you," they said. "It's going to be okay." I could tell by the tone. They thought someone was sick or dying. I looked at her and said, "This story isn't going to tell itself." Her dad looked at me. "I swear," his eyes said. "Oh no," like he already knew. "I'll give her credit." She cried her way through it. She told them everything, every detail, even how I walked in on them. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she finally said, "Somebody say something." I looked at her. What are they supposed to say? That you're a horrible person? That you've hurt me worse than you can imagine? That you ripped my heart out? That you threw away 29 years? Destroyed our family? Or that you and that piece of size boss of yours have wrecked his family too? Then I said what I'd been holding in. Was the sex really that good? Was it worth all of this? I just kept going. All the rage, the betrayal, the heartbreak, I let it out. I didn't even know I could be that cruel. Her mom finally stepped in. "That's enough," but her dad cut in. "No," he said. "She deserves all of it." Her mom started to follow her upstairs, but her dad said, "Leave her. She needs to suffer a while before any healing can start." We talked for a while after she left. They offered their support. "If you need anything, just ask," I told them. I'd been in individual counseling, and I thought I'd be okay eventually. I thanked them for being there. Then I said something that surprised even me. "Despite everything, I still love her." I added, "She's going to need you guys, more than I will." That night, I slept better than I had since D-Day. The next morning, before I left, I peeked into the guest room. She hadn't slept. Her face was puffy and red. She'd been crying all night. For the first time since D-Day, I think the full weight of what she'd done finally hit her, telling her family and unleashing all that anger on her. I think it finally snapped her out of the affair fog. She's been looking genuinely remorseful since then. She's not defensive anymore. She listens when I talk. I told her we needed to communicate more, like this, me speaking, her listening. I explained that I'm 99% leaning toward divorce, but I'm still clinging to that 1% like it's a life raft. And if there's even a sliver of hope for us, she needs to do exactly what I've asked to help me start healing. She nodded and said she'd do anything, just begged me not to make any final decisions yet. I reminded her of something I told her when my dad passed. Back when I was 17, he once said to me, "You'll go through hard times in life, but how you handle them says more about who you are than the hard times themselves ever will. No matter what, never make big decisions when you're upset." At the time, I just brushed it off. "Yeah, Dad, whatever." But now, choking up, I told her, "I wish you were still here so I could tell you I was listening." She stood up and wrapped her arms around me. I didn't hug her back, but the contact felt comforting, and that scared the hell out of me. She sat down again, and I told her she needed to move out. There's no way I can heal with her in the same house every day. We both need space. She agreed and asked what else she could do. I told her I was too emotionally drained right now to even think straight, but I'd let her know soon. On my way to work the next morning, I called my lawyer and asked if she could meet today. She was heading to the office and said we could grab coffee. I laid everything out for her, my 99-1 odds, how conflicted I felt. Told her I wanted divorce papers drafted just in case. She said that if I could afford it and had the time, it would be wise to find my wife an apartment and even cover her first month's rent. If it came to court, it would show I was trying to handle the split respectfully. I agreed and she promised to have something ready for me by Monday. At work, I called a real estate broker we've worked with for years, told him the situation and asked for help. He put me in touch with a rental agent who called back quickly with a place that checked all the boxes: decent price, good location, short-term lease. I met the property manager, signed off, and paid for the rest of February, all of March, and the deposit. When I got home, I told my wife I'd found her a place, prepaid, and that she needed to go meet the manager and sign the lease. 6-month lease, which felt like a positive, some space without it being permanent. She looked surprised. "You move so fast," she said. I told her I had to. I needed her not to come back from our son's place again. While she was gone, I called a few moving companies. Thankfully, being mid-month, one had availability for Saturday. When she returned, I told her I'd already booked the movers and asked why she hadn't brought up anything financial. She looked puzzled. I explained that I'd cancelled our credit cards, pulled my half from the joint account, and shut down the shared debit card. She seemed upset, but to her credit, she said she didn't blame me. Turns out she hadn't spent anything since D-Day anyway. Between staying at our son's and home, she hadn't gone anywhere or needed anything. I also found out she'd called her employer and requested a leave of absence, saying she was dealing with personal issues. They let her use her remaining vacation days first, before her leave officially started. On Friday, I told her she could take whatever she needed for the new place. Just leave me enough to live with, and not to touch anything in the basement, my new bed, or the family heirlooms. Also told her I'd be willing to try marriage counselling, but she needed to do the legwork, find 3 therapists, and let me choose the one that felt right. Early Saturday morning, I left the house. When I came back, it was half empty, including the TV. That was fine. I'd been meaning to upgrade anyway. My friends still had my liquor stash, so I stopped and picked up my favourite bourbon. Now I'm sipping a glass while typing this. Sorry for the long update, but if you made it this far, thank you. Tomorrow I'm hitting the gym. Then I'll make a big pot of my favourite chili and go buy that new TV. Pretty sure I'll have more to share in the near future. Today marks 4 weeks since D-Day. Feels like it's time for an update. Thanks to everyone who's reached out with support, advice, and kind words. On Sunday night, my sister called. I'm not sure why I hadn't told her everything earlier. Maybe I was just too overwhelmed. Turns out, our mum had spoken to her and encouraged her to check in. She asked me to come visit before spring gets too busy. She and her husband live down in South Carolina. Honestly, I think I might take her up on it. Monday morning, I met with my lawyer and reviewed the divorce paperwork. 2 major things. First, she stays completely out of my company. Second, I keep the house and buy out her half of the equity over 5 years. No alimony. She has a solid income. The land the cabin sits on was a gift from my grandfather. If she wants to fight over any increased value due to the cabin I built, we'll discuss that later. All of this is based on her agreeing to make it an uncontested divorce. I'm just waiting for the right moment to move forward. Later at work, my soon-to-be ex-wife called and spoke with my assistant. She gave her 3 names and phone numbers. My assistant told her I was in the office and could speak, but she said, "No, just pass along the numbers. He'll understand." 3 marriage counselors. And yeah, I understood exactly what they were. My assistant walked in, handed me the paper, then closed the door behind her. She looked at me, clearly not leaving until she got answers. She's been with me over 20 years. I know that look. So I told her. She was just as stunned as everyone else has been. She insisted I tell the rest of our core team, the people who work with me year-round, the ones who've been here the longest. I agreed. She gathered them in the design room, and I told the story all over again. They were shocked, but offered support. Afterward, I pulled in my IT guy and asked if he could access her phone activity, calls, texts. Since the phone's technically a company line, he said it wouldn't be a problem. Later that day, he emailed me everything he found. I saved it to review later. Before leaving, I called the 3 counselors she gave me. The first one was polite, but brief. The second told me I'd have to wait until the first session to ask questions. The third stayed on the line for 30 minutes, answering everything I threw at her, and even asking me some questions of her own. My biggest one: how do you define success in marriage counseling? Does it mean reconciliation? She said, success is whatever outcome is healthiest for both people. It could be staying together. It could be divorce. That was the answer I needed. I booked an appointment with her for Thursday, Tuesday. I had lunch with the affair partner's wife. We sat for 2 hours, comparing notes, trying to piece together what we missed, trying to make sense of why they did this. What did we do wrong? What red flags did we ignore? We both agreed. This wasn't our fault. In hindsight, she realized she'd probably overlooked a few signs. She even suspected this wasn't his first time cheating. Turns out, he left his last company suddenly and didn't work for a stretch. I suggested she ask her attorney to look into his previous employment records. It might be useful during divorce proceedings, and a subpoena might get that information. She's been letting him live in the basement, but they don't interact at all. Then she asked me a favor. Of course, I said. She wanted to meet him for lunch and surprise him. She asked if I'd show up too, so we could both confront him and finally get some answers. When and where? I'll be there, I told her. We set it up for Wednesday. That night, I drove to my wife's new apartment unannounced. A part of me thought if I catch AP there, my decision would be made for me. She answered the door and she looked awful, like she hadn't eaten or slept in days. 2 feelings hit me at once. The angry part of me thought, too bad, you did this to yourself. But the part that still cared, it wanted to comfort her, protect her. She hugged me. I resisted the urge to hug her back. I sat down and asked for something to drink. She brought me a Diet Mountain Dew. Then I asked to see her phone. She didn't hesitate, just handed it over. I spent the next 30 minutes going through it. No talking between us. There were several texts to AP where she told him she never wanted to see him again, calling herself stupid for falling for his lies, for throwing away the best thing in her life. It was all there. I had what I needed. I'd compare it to the records my IT guy gave me to see if anything had been deleted. I handed her phone back. Then I told her, I haven't lied to you, but I haven't told you everything either. I let her know I'd hired a lawyer and had the divorce papers drawn up. No tears, just this defeated, hollow look on her face. I told her she should probably get her own attorney. Just then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then started cursing. She showed it. To me, it was AP texting, saying he was depressed and needed to see her. I looked at her and said, I can leave if you want him to come over. She said no, and showed me what she texted back. She told him, flat out, to basically fuck off and never contact her again. I asked why she hadn't blocked him already. She said, duh, I should have thought of that. I watched as she did it. Then I told her we had a marriage counseling session scheduled for Thursday. She looked relieved, even happy, but I quickly reminded her, don't get too excited, nothing is guaranteed. I said she needed to bring a list of what she's truly willing to do to help me heal and to fix this. I left it at that for the night. There was work I had to finish. I promised myself I'd try to update more later. Picking up where I stopped, Wednesday morning, I locked myself in my office to review all the data my IT guy had sent me. It lined up exactly with what I saw on my wife's phone the night before. Then I drove out to meet AP's wife and crash their little lunch meeting. When he saw me, he visibly panicked. She stayed calm and told him, I invited him. He looked completely blindsided. We spent the next half hour grilling him. He admitted everything I'd already found. The first 3 months were just an emotional affair. Physical stuff started around the 6-month mark, as if that made a difference, like that detail changed anything for me. I asked him directly, have you contacted or tried to contact my wife since D-Day? He said no. Bullshit, I replied. I was sitting with her when you texted her last night about how depressed you are and how badly you want to see her. AP's wife looked like she had steam pouring out of her ears, but she kept herself composed. Then I asked him, "What happened at your old job? Why did you leave so suddenly?" He fired back, "None of your business." I told him, "Might as well come clean. It'll come out eventually. Don't you think your wife deserves some truth for once?" Still, he resisted. So I bluffed, told him my lawyer was going to subpoena his employment records since it could help establish a behavioral pattern relevant to my divorce. That got to him. He looked pale, then finally admitted he had an affair with a co-worker and got fired. She lost it, called him every name in the book. Then she told him he had to get the hell out of the house. He tried to argue, but I stepped in, talked him down, and convinced him to leave for the night. Give her some space. After he left, she and I talked for a bit longer. She asked for my lawyer's contact info. Turns out she'd still been on the fence about staying with him, until today. Now, she wanted to bury him in court. We parted ways, and I told her to call if she needed anything. For a moment, watching his life crumble the same way mine did gave me a weird sense of justice. Thursday. My wife met me outside the marriage counselor's office. We sat in the room as the therapist laid out ground rules, said this would be painful, that it would require brutal honesty, and it was up to us if we truly wanted it to work. She said she'd guide us through the process, but real healing had to come from within. Then she asked who wanted to start. I did. I looked at them both and said, "I'm willing to put in the work, but this won't be easy." I told them the 3 things I can't move past. First, whenever I see my wife, I no longer see the woman I married. All I picture is her boss on top of her, fucking her. Second, when I was about to call his wife on D-Day, my wife's first reaction wasn't concern for me. It was, "You can't do that to him." Third, I still don't believe she's truly remorseful. She's sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she's done. If I hadn't walked in, she'd still be sleeping with him. That's just the truth. It felt good to let all of that out. She cried, but honestly, I didn't care. Maybe for the first time, she was finally grasping the depth of the damage she caused. Maybe she was actually starting to feel real remorse. Still, it might be too late. Then she began speaking. Said she knew she destroyed everything, that no one was to blame but her, that she understands she must carry the consequences of her actions, and her only focus now is helping me get past this pain, even if that means I might never stay. She went on to say that I should never blame myself, that I'd always been a loyal husband, a good father, a partner, a best friend. She said she honestly didn't have a real answer to why she did what she did. Even if I asked, she couldn't explain it. She said she started individual counseling yesterday, hoping that maybe someday she could figure it out, maybe even give me an answer that makes some kind of sense. She reached into her purse and handed me the list. I told her to give it to the therapist instead. The therapist glanced at it and asked if I wanted to go through it then. I told her I'd look it over by myself and that we could talk about it during our next session. We talked a bit longer until time ran out and agreed to meet again the following week. Before we left, both my wife and the therapist asked me not to make any major decisions yet, said this was a solid first step. It's Saturday now, and I still haven't read the list. Nothing much has happened otherwise. The kids are coming over for dinner tomorrow. I plan on sharing more of the truth, what really happened, where things stand now, and I'm also going to ask how they'd feel about taking a paternity test. I'll post an update after. Just a brief one. Dinner with the kids got pushed to tomorrow. In the meantime, I called STBXW and told her we needed to talk. Earlier that afternoon, based on suggestions from people here, I went out and bought a second phone to pull off a little test. She showed up carrying takeout from my favorite Chinese restaurant. I let her in, but made it clear I wouldn't be eating dinner with her. Before she arrived, I had typed out a fake message from AP, pretending to be depressed and desperate. My wife kicked me out. I'm a mess. Please don't hate me. We're amazing together. Give me a chance to prove it. I know you still care. Please let me see you. I was just waiting for the right moment to send it. We sat at the kitchen table and I started filling her in. I told her about meeting with AP's wife and then about the next day when we confronted AP together. I mentioned how he lied about contacting her, but held off on revealing what really happened at his last job. I explained how furious his wife had been and how she'd thrown him out. I told her I was worried AP might do something reckless or dangerous, maybe stalk her or worse, and that she needed to be on guard. Her response: "For him. He deserves everything that's coming to him." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "So do you, because you did fucks him." She had no comeback, just stared down, completely deflated. I excused myself to use the bathroom and sent the fake message. When I came back, she looked angry and was texting someone. I asked who she was messaging, and she told me AP had just texted her. I said, "I thought you blocked him," acting annoyed. She replied that she had, but this message came from a new number. She showed me the message and her reply, which told him to leave her alone, that she never wanted to hear from him again. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to add to her list. She said she'd like to meet AP's wife and apologize in person. I told her I'd try to set that up. Then I explained that I needed 2 more lists by the next marriage counseling session. The first, a complete timeline of the affair. Every moment, from the initial flirting to the first time they slept together, up to D-Day. She agreed. I told her I needed to take the dog out and would be right back. Outside, I sent another fake message from AP, this time begging her to reconsider. A 2. "We're meant to be together. I'll make it right. Please let me prove it. I miss you." When I returned, she was texting again. She told me it was AP again and let me read both his message and her reply, which threatened to call the police if he didn't stop. Then she asked if she could stay on my company's phone plan and if she could get either a new phone or just a new number. I told her to leave her current phone with me. I'd get her a new one and bring it tomorrow. She asked about the second list. I said I wanted every sexual detail. Everything. She looked stunned. I told her to write it all down, seal it in an envelope, and give it to me. I wouldn't open it unless I felt like she was hiding things or not trying hard enough. With that, I told her it was time to leave. Her parting words: "Guess I'll eat Chinese food alone." The kids came over for dinner last night. We talked for hours. More on that soon. I couldn't sleep Sunday night. Not after what I'd done with the fake texts. That's not me. It's not who I want to become. Monday, I went to STBXW's apartment to drop off the new phone. I asked if I could come in. I had something important to say. The look on her face told me she thought I was there to say I'd filed the papers. Handed her the new phone but told her she probably wouldn't need it. "What do you mean?" she asked. I said, "I was the one texting you last night. That wasn't him." I paused. "I'm sorry for lying." She looked devastated and sat down. I told her I was still clinging to that 1% life raft, but that I couldn't lie. Not if we were going to try to make this work. She wiped away a few tears. That wasn't the reaction I expected. I figured she'd be mad, but instead she said, "This is what I've done." She looked straight at me. "You're the most honest, genuine man I've ever known, and I dragged you into this mess because of my selfishness. I took advantage of your kindness, your faith in me, and betrayed you in the worst way possible. Now, I've never been one to buy into the whole trigger concept. Always thought that stuff was for the overly sensitive. But something about the way she said those words, it hit a nerve. And suddenly, I broke down. Something I promised myself I'd never do in front of her. I was crying uncontrollably. Between sobs, I managed to choke out, "How could you do this? Do you even understand how much pain you've caused me? What you've done to our kids?" I told her there was a gaping hole in my chest, where my heart used to be. There was more, but I could barely speak. She started crying too. She moved closer, sat beside me and wrapped her arms around me. After we both finally calmed down, I stood up and asked if she still wanted the new phone. She nodded, so I gave it to her. She asked if I'd read her list. I told her yes, it was a good start, but I didn't agree with one part. She looked confused, so I clarified. The part where you say I should go out and sleep with someone, have an affair of my own. She said she thought I should. I asked her if she remembered the day we first met. She nodded. I told her that day, when I saw her playing volleyball at school, even though I thought she was way out of my league. I told myself, if I can win her over and build a life with her, I'll never need to be with anyone else ever again. After a few dates, and after the first time we made love, I knew I was right. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. Up until 4 weeks ago, I still felt that way. To me, she was still that same girl on the volleyball court. There was another quiet moment between us. More tears. Eventually, I told her I needed to leave. Our kids were coming over for dinner. She said she wouldn't ask to join us, that she understood I needed some distance. I agreed and told her I'd only be seeing her during marriage counseling sessions for now. I mentioned that I planned to talk to the kids about doing a paternity test. She said she didn't blame me and that she had no right to ask me to trust her, but insisted this was the only time she had ever stepped outside of the marriage. As I was heading out, she asked me to wait. There was something else she had to share. She told me she'd emailed HR at her job and formally resigned. Said she knew she could never truly make things right if she kept working with her boss. She wanted to report him to HR and get him fired. I asked her not to do that. It could impact his wife's divorce case, and that wasn't fair to her. She agreed. Then she asked if, assuming I still had any feelings left for her, I could keep her on the company's health plan since we were still legally married. I said yes. That evening, the kids came over. We had dinner and a long conversation. I told them about my talk with their mum and the paternity test. I reassured them it didn't matter to me. I would always be their father and love them unconditionally. My son asked if I believed her. I said I did. I could tell he was upset, that he even had to ask. I firmly told him, no matter what's happened, she's still your mother. You need to find a way to forgive her. I said the same to my daughter. We talked about it for a while, and I also filled them in on everything that had happened over the last few weeks. Eventually, they left, and I tried to get some rest. Just wanted to thank everyone for the support, the advice, and the encouragement. It's helped more than you could know. Quick update. Had lunch with AP's wife on Wednesday. She said she was doing okay, but I wasn't so sure. She looked paler, a little thinner, even more worn down than last week. Told me she hasn't seen or heard from her husband since last Thursday. He stopped by to grab the rest of his things and told her he was going to stay in an extended stay hotel for a while. So I guess he's not creeping around or stalking anyone. Still, I told her to reach out to her neighbors. If she's close with any of them, she should let them know what's been going on and ask them to keep an eye out for anything unusual. She said she would. I asked her if she'd changed the locks yet. She said she hadn't thought about it. I told her I'd swing by, see what needed to be done, and take care of it. She insisted I didn't have to, but I told her we were like siblings now, bonded by betrayal. And besides, it gave me something to do instead of sitting alone in my house. She ended up hiring the same attorney I have. Said she seemed like a shark ready to shred him in court. I told her, she's your lawyer, you're the client. She'll do whatever you need her to do. As for me, she's making sure I'm protected in case I decide divorce is the final answer. Everything's ready on my end, just waiting on what I choose. In the meantime, she's also giving me room to figure out if that last 1% chance is worth pursuing. I stopped by her place and got the locks changed. We agreed to try and talk once a week. Our second marriage counseling session was yesterday. Honestly, I can't say if it's helping or doing anything to shift the divorce meter off the 99-to-1 mark. We went over the list my STBXW had made. There were a lot of genuinely good things on it. She admitted that because she betrayed me and shattered our marriage so deeply, she knows that no matter how hard she tries, it probably won't be enough. But that's on her. She'll have to live with that. Still, until the papers are signed, she's going to give it everything she has. She wants to help me heal, to see if there's even a path back. And if it doesn't work out, she says she'll still help me move forward and rebuild, however that may look. She knows that her selfishness changed everything, that it'll never be what it once was. But maybe, just maybe, we can build something new from what's left. The therapist asked if she was doing individual counseling. She said she went Friday last week and again on Monday and Wednesday. She's scheduled to go again this Friday and plans to continue 3 times a week while she's unemployed. Here's the messed up part. I asked if she'd be okay financially since she's not working. I know, I shouldn't care, but I do. I can't help it. She said she still has her share of our joint account, received a small severance from her company, and if needed, she'll tap into her 401k if she's still jobless in 4 or 5 months. She's also considering launching a small IT consulting firm focused on startups, something we had once talked about her doing, long before D-Day. The therapist steered us back to her list and asked about the hall pass suggestion. I told them I wasn't interested. She asked why. I explained that it felt like the first truly self-serving thing STBXW had done since her big come-to-Jesus moment with our families. It wasn't really about me sleeping with some random woman. It was about her trying to ease the guilt that's been eating her alive since the affair came to light. Guilt over the pain she caused me, the kids, our families, everyone. They both agreed. I told them that even though we're not living together, I still consider our vows sacred and intend to honor them until a judge says otherwise. The therapist picked up on that phrasing right away. Until we're divorced. She asked if that meant I'd already made my decision. I said no, but reminded her and STBXW that I had said from the very beginning this would be nearly impossible to come back from, that I was still clinging to that 1% hope. But if she tried anything else like the hall pass again, that life raft was going to start leaking fast. We talked more and eventually wrapped up. Weather's supposed to be warmer tomorrow. I've got a few of the guys coming into the shop so we can start prepping the equipment for spring work. I'm actually looking forward to it. The timing of all this, happening in the dead of winter with its endless cold nights and quiet work days, definitely made it worse. If it were spring or summer, I could have buried myself in 16-hour days to keep my mind busy. Thanks again to everyone for your support. Once again, I really appreciate all the kind words, guidance, and encouragement. It's helped more than you can imagine. Reading others' experiences has been incredibly helpful too. This isn't an update about me or STBXW. No, this one's about Poshat, formerly known as AP. You might remember I mentioned that the OBS hired the same lawyer I have. I asked her if that created any conflict of interest. She assured me there wasn't one, and she was more than happy to help OBS through her mess too. Since then, OBS's attorney had her investigator do a deep background check on AP to gather anything useful for the divorce proceedings. OBS called me to share what they found. Let's just say, that guy is an even bigger piece of trash than any of us imagined. Think Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park seeing the giant pile of dino dung. That was me hearing the investigator's latest update on POS. Turns out, it didn't take him long at all to move on from STBXW and start something up with yet another co-worker. The investigator found social media exchanges and text messages between them, and even managed to be waiting at his hotel when they got off work. My attorney is planning to speak with the woman to see whether she's just another casualty, or was fully aware of what she was getting into. Then came the deeper dirt. After some digging, the investigator found that POS hadn't just had one affair at his previous company. He had 3. The 2 before the one that got him canned had eerily similar endings. Both women said that when they tried to end things, he retaliated by faking bad performance reviews, citing made-up attendance problems and other nonsense, until they were both fired. They were both married and too afraid of their husbands finding out, so they stayed silent, just let it all go. It was the 3rd woman's husband who eventually found out. He told her she had to leave her job, and together they brought proof of the affair to HR. POS was fired after that. That couple's marriage is still hanging in the balance, unsure whether it'll make it. But this next part, this is the gut punch. One of the earlier affairs resulted in a pregnancy. Her husband had a vasectomy years ago, so there was no way to spin it. Their marriage ended. He got custody of their 2 kids, and now she's stuck raising a baby on her own. Poss had been secretly sending her child support from a separate account that OBS never knew about. He's currently 3 months behind. My lawyer has offered to represent all 3 women in a sexual harassment lawsuit against Poss's former employer. She asked if I'd be willing to speak to STBXW about whether she faced any job-related pressure during their affair, something to possibly build a case against her company. But she made it clear her first responsibility is to me. I told her no. I'm not going to hand STBXW an easy out for her choices. That's it for now. It's hard to imagine anyone being a bigger scumbag than Poss. If karma's real, he deserves to get flattened by a truck while crossing the street. OBS has been advised that his employment status shouldn't affect the support he owes her. She's going to move forward with informing HR at his current job. I asked if I could be involved. We're still figuring that part out. The next few weeks should be interesting. A lot of you have asked how my kids are doing. Thank you. They're hanging in there. They came over for dinner Saturday night with my son's wife and my daughter's fiancé. Grilled some steaks. Turned out great. My son's been keeping in touch with his mum and even visited her new apartment. I wouldn't say he's forgiven her, but maybe he's come to terms with it enough to move forward. My daughter, though, still hasn't spoken to her mum since D-Day. The fury she had before is gone, but she still refuses to engage. STBXW has tried calling multiple times, but she just ignores it. I told my daughter I'd support her however she needs to handle this, but that avoiding her mum forever might not be the healthiest way to cope. The silver lining in all of this? I've seen more of my kids in the past 6 weeks than I did in the 6 months before all this started. MC this past week went well, I guess. But I'm starting to question the point of continuing weekly sessions. We aren't living together. There's no shared day-to-day emotional friction. Can it really be called marriage counseling if there's no marriage happening in real time? We agreed to give it a few more weeks and then reassess. Then the therapist brought up Poss and his history. She asked STBXW how she felt about all the new revelations. STBXW said it didn't matter, it didn't change a thing. She alone was responsible for this mess. Said she used to see herself as smart, educated, strong. Not anymore. The string of terrible choices and reckless actions she made to bring us to this point were on her, nobody else. We sat with that for a while. Before we wrapped, the therapist turned to me and asked if STBXW's remorse and how she's processing all this is starting to shift. That 99 to 1% I talked about in the beginning. I told them we've made progress on 2 out of the 3 deal breakers I mentioned early on. But I still can't get past what I saw the day I walked in on them. That memory plays on loop, and it's the hardest wall to break through. There are nights I just can't sleep. It keeps replaying in my head like a broken record. When I'm not busy, no work, no gym, no chats with the kids, my mind drifts right back to that moment. It's all consuming, and until I find a way to truly deal with it, I know things won't move forward. The therapist asked if I'd talk to IC about it. I chuckled and told her that's pretty much all we talk about these days. OBS and I still keep in touch almost every day. I told her that WS wants to meet her and apologize. She agreed and said, "Let's do that next week." Then she tells me about her meeting with Poss's new AP. Her lawyer contacted the woman at her job and asked to meet her in the lobby coffee shop. At the meeting, she explained who she was, who she represented, and laid out the full history of Poss's mess. Everything from his last job and now his involvement with WS. That's when it got interesting. AP looked confused and asked, "Why are you helping Poss's betrayed wife and the husband of the woman who cheated on him? Isn't that a bit hypocritical?" OBS's lawyer asked what she meant. AP replied, "Poss told me that your client's husband cheated on her, and that's why she left her job. Apparently, that's the story he's spreading around their office. The lawyer corrected her quickly, said she had the facts all twisted. That Poss was the one cheating with WS and that she, AP, was just his latest target. I guess that news didn't sit too well with her. She admitted they'd only slept together once, but he had been trying to get with her for a while. She was married. She said she'd break it off as soon as she got back to work. The lawyer advised her to reach out immediately if Poss ever tried, to use his authority to pressure her into more. As for her marriage, the lawyer said that's her personal issue, but warned her this is all going to HR soon, and there will likely be consequences. Now, when OBS told me about the lie Poss had been spreading, that I was the one who cheated, and that's why WS left work, I lost it. I had to hang up, stormed around the house, yelling and cursing like a lunatic, even startled my dog. I know these people from WS's old job. She was there 18 years. I'd been to their company parties. Some of their kids went to school with ours. We were in Little League together. These lies hit close. Once I cooled off, I called OBS back and told her to get in touch with Poss and say she wanted to meet. She asked why, and I told her I'd explain when I picked her up. She just laughed and said, "Okay." When we got to his hotel, she knocked and said she was there. The second he cracked the door open, I shoved it open like I was kicking in. A suspect's door on a cop show. It smacked him square in the face, and he dropped to the floor. I don't think OBS expected that. She was trying to calm me down while I grabbed him by the collar, yelling every curse word I could think of. I slammed him against the wall and told him if he spread one more lie, I'd put him in the hospital. And I didn't care if I ended up in jail for it. Who the hell do you think you are saying I cheated on my wife? OBS was trying to pull me back, telling me he wasn't worth it. I was still yelling when I looked down and saw something. He had wet himself. He'd literally pissed his pants. I couldn't help it. I dropped him and bent over laughing. "You pissed yourself? Seriously?" OBS surprised me again by stepping forward, asking if he was okay. He mumbled a weak yes. Then, bam, she kicked him right in the groin. He curled up, moaning, and before I could say anything else, she grabbed his head and kneed him square in the face. Nose started bleeding instantly. She turned, took my hand, and said, "Let's go." I followed, stunned, and as we walked to my truck, I told her, "I can't believe you just did that." She told me she took a women's self-defense class a few years ago, and that she'd been waiting for this moment since D-Day. I said we needed to stop and have a drink to celebrate that glorious beatdown. We went to a bar I knew, had a few drinks, and shared stories about how much of a disaster Poss truly is. I dropped her off later and drove home with the biggest grin I've had in weeks. I can only imagine what kind of lies Poss will be telling at work come Monday. My house is a mess, and I'm going to be living in the basement for a while. Right after the new year, WS and I took out a home equity loan. I had a contractor I know draw up a few designs to remodel the kitchen, living room, and dining area into one big, great room. We also planned to renovate the master bathroom. Found the only problem was we couldn't agree on a design. Finally, I just said, "Screw it. I'm making the call. Let's start." And before anyone asks, I did check with my lawyer first. Since WS signed the loan and it was listed in the 3 appraisals we had done to determine the house's value for the asset split, I had the green light to move forward. The kids came by last night. We grabbed some really good pizza and sat down to talk. I filled them in on Poss's disgusting past, how OBS and I have been trying to help each other, the lies he's been telling about me, and what happened when OBS and I confronted him. They were shocked. I've always tried to stay calm and not show much anger around them, but they didn't blame me. In fact, they couldn't stop laughing at the part where he peed himself. After that, we shifted the focus to how they're feeling about their mum. We talked about WS finally coming clean to the family and how I lost it on her. I explained that there's a lot happening in therapy, both individually and together, that they don't see. Since D-Day, WS has changed. She's been showing guilt, facing what she's done, and accepting how much damage she caused. We had a long, heartfelt conversation. They had questions, and I answered them all, about how I'm holding up and what WS is doing to support my healing. I suggested they both try individual counseling. My son said no, that talking to me is enough for now. My daughter agreed to join me at one of my IC sessions and decide afterward. I also suggested we all, WS, me and the kids, sit down together soon. Told them that finally being able to vent to WS helped me a lot. And maybe they need that chance too. They agreed, as long as I'm there when it happens. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. This morning, WS met OBS for coffee. I came along, just in case. WS spoke first. She apologized deeply to OBS for the pain she caused. Said she knows OBS probably hates her, and she wouldn't blame her if she did. Said she can't even look at herself in the mirror these days. Doesn't wear makeup anymore because she can't stand her reflection. Even though Poss is a monster, WS said she alone is responsible for her choices. OBS wanted to hear WS's side. Wanted to know how many lies Poss fed her. I'd already heard most of what WS shared. But then she dropped something I wasn't expecting. She said she tried to break things off with Poss 3 different times, but each time, he hinted, her job would be at risk. The last time she tried, he threatened to go to HR and report that she offered sex for a promotion, and that he'd call me too. He insisted on going to that work convention with her. Said he was tired of paying for hotel rooms and couldn't bring her to his own house because his wife was always there. Still, WS said none of that justifies what she did. She never should have started the affair in the first place. And no matter what he threatened, she should have had the courage to end it and report him, no matter what the cost. My hatred for that man multiplied. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and called our lawyer. I told her to come meet us immediately. She asked why. I didn't explain. I just gave her the coffee shop address and said it was urgent. When I returned to the table, OBS was opening up. She said she wanted to keep hating WS, but she just couldn't anymore. She said Poss is a manipulator, always has been. She thought she had a solid marriage, but now she sees she was just there to raise his kids, clean the house, and be available when no one else was. Then she looked WS in the eye and told her that for her to fall for Poss's lies, he must have been laying it on really thick for her to risk and destroy the life she had with me. US admitted she now understands how she was fooled, but that doesn't excuse anything. She should have been stronger and smarter. She let it happen, and in doing so, she broke apart her family and hurt the people who loved her the most. OBS told her not to be so harsh on herself. Said she was just the next name on Poss's list. If it hadn't been her, it would have been someone else. US responded softly, but it was me. And because I let it happen, I've wrecked everything that mattered. They kept talking until our lawyer arrived. I looked over at WS and told her she needed to repeat everything she just said to the lawyer. I went and grabbed another round of coffee for everyone, then had to head out for work. The lawyer left me 2 voicemails today, but I haven't had a free moment to call her back. I'll try to get in touch tomorrow. Marriage counseling is scheduled for tomorrow too. It's probably going to be interesting. Finally, some good news, not personal, business related, but I'll take anything positive these days. On Friday, a home builder I've been chasing for months finally called and let me know they picked my company as the landscaping contractor for a new subdivision they're developing. These are upscale homes on at least 3/4 acre lots. I can't even describe how much of a boost that gave me. The kids and I went over to WS's apartment on Saturday to have a serious conversation. It played out about how you'd imagine. There were a lot of emotions, plenty of shouting, and a wave of hurt coming from both of them. Our daughter absolutely let her mum have it. I had to stop her a few times, but each time, WS told me to let her go. She said she needed to hear all of it, that she deserved it for what she'd done to our family. By the end, both of them were crying. Then our son took his turn. He wasn't as explosive, maybe because he's been in contact with her since D-Day. Our daughter, on the other hand, hadn't spoken a word to WS in over 7 weeks. I had to get back to work after that, but the weather was turning and rain was coming down hard. Okay, here's what happened this afternoon. Poss got absolutely burned. I'm sharing what I heard directly from our lawyer and from OBS. Earlier in the day, our lawyer, who we now just call Shark Lawyer, or SL, filed all the necessary paperwork with the county courthouse. Then she sent an email to the CEOs and HR heads of both WS's current and POS's former companies. Later that same afternoon, SL showed up at WS's workplace, bringing OBS and WS along. Her assistant came too. While SL and OBS went into the HR department, SL's assistant headed to the CEO's office to personally deliver physical copies of the legal filings. The three women walked into the HR manager's office, shut the door, and took their seats. HR already knew WS, of course, but SL formally introduced herself and OBS. Then she pulled out and handed over a copy of the lawsuit, naming the company and POS as defendants in a sexual harassment case. Included were sworn statements from WS and the new AP, both detailing POS's misconduct and abuse of authority. The HR manager reacted like you'd expect, talked about sending it to legal and following protocol. SL then asked if she could personally deliver POS his copy of the lawsuit. But before they could leave the office, the CEO stormed in with a copy of the filings in his hand, shouting, "What the hell is this about?" Then he noticed who else was in the room, paused, and mumbled, "Excuse me." SL stood up calmly and introduced herself. "I think you already know what this is about." He looked directly at WS and asked, "Is this why you left?" SL immediately cut in, telling WS not to answer that. SL repeated her request to be taken to POS's office. The CEO told her to wait outside for a moment. OBS and WS left the room and came down to the lobby where I was waiting, along with AP, two from POS's old job. SL stayed behind, overhearing the HR manager and CEO having a hushed but clearly tense conversation. After a few minutes, they came out and escorted SL to POS's office. Once inside, the CEO tried to introduce SL but stumbled over her name, so she took over and introduced herself. She explained who she represented, then started handing him the documents, one after the other. First came the divorce papers from OBS, suing for infidelity. Next, the lawsuit naming POS and the company as co-defendants in the sexual harassment suit. Then, another suit naming POS and his former employer for similar charges. Finally, papers requesting the child support agreement with AP Nusa 2 be reopened, since she didn't have proper legal counsel at the time. These new claims would seek to go back to the original support date and attach claims to any severance pay he received, current wages, retirement benefits, and even his 401k. They'd also follow him into any future job. According to SL, POS was in complete shock. All he could manage to stammer was, "What do you mean, any future employment?" The CEO jumped in and said his employment with the company was terminated effective immediately. He was told to surrender his office keys, company phone, and badge on the spot. Any personal belongings would be mailed to him. SL then asked the CEO to sign a document, along with the HR manager, confirming that both the company and POS had officially been served legal papers. The CEO agreed and told HR to call security and have POS escorted from the building. SL left him with her business card and told him to have his attorney get in touch. Then she came down to the lobby and met up with me, AP number 2, WS and OBS. Just a few minutes later, POS came off the elevator with security walking him out of the building. The four of us started clapping as he passed, his head low and his shoulders slumped. I held back from saying anything, but AP number 2 didn't. She leaned in and said, "Karma's a bitch, and so am I, you piece of shit." After that, everyone said their goodbyes. AP number 2 gave SL a long hug, thanking her and saying it was the first time she had felt genuinely good in years. WS said her goodbye and walked to the elevator, telling us she was heading back up to her old department. I was a little confused, not sure what she needed to go back there for. SL invited OBS and me out to dinner to debrief and fill in the blanks from earlier. During dinner, she shared with OBS her thoughts on how the divorce filing probably played out. When I asked about the next steps for the lawsuits, she politely reminded me that she couldn't share any details with me, since I'm not directly involved in those filings. We had a laid-back dinner, shared a few laughs, and then went our separate ways. When I got home, WS was there waiting and asked if she could come inside. The house, especially the kitchen, living, and dining rooms, was a mess from the ongoing renovations. She looked around and asked about it, so I explained which design I ended up choosing. We chatted for a few minutes and then headed downstairs. "This'll only take a minute," she said, then explained that she had gone back to her old department to tell the people she worked with the truth about why she left. They asked some questions about what went down in Poss's office, and she filled them in as best she could. She gave me a hug before leaving, said she'd see me at the next MC session, and let herself out. After she left, I went out back and lit a fire in the pit. I went inside, grabbed a bottle of Angel's Envy bourbon and a glass with some ice, then settled down next to the flames. As I sipped my drink, I reflected on everything that's happened over the past 7.5 weeks. I'm still far from feeling like myself again, but between landing that big contract, our family meeting on Saturday, and how things played out today, I feel better than I have in a long time. I can't thank everyone here enough for all the advice, encouragement, and support. You've helped me more than you know. Truly, thank you for everything. P.S. I forgot to mention, while all the chaos was unfolding with Poss and the current company, SL had her investigator serve legal documents to Poss's former employer as well. A few people asked about my best friend, the guy who was there for me right after D-Day. He and his wife have been incredible. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am for everything they've done. Whether it was swinging by the house with dinner, checking in at the office for no reason, or just calling to talk, they've been there through all of it. I talk to them often and make sure they know how much I appreciate them. The kids are doing okay. My son is handling everything a little better. Someone suggested that part of why our daughter is struggling more could be tied to her fiancé. You know the old saying, if you want to know what your girlfriend will look like in 20 years, look at her mum. Maybe it applies here too. She might be panicking that her fiancé is thinking, what if she ends up like her mum? And wondering if he's reconsidering the engagement. I really hope that's not the case, but I get why this would shake her up. I'll find a way to address it if that fear turns into something more serious. Last week in MC, I brought up the idea of WS taking a polygraph. She agreed and went through with it last Friday. I've seen the results, and I'm satisfied with what I saw. That's all for now. Thank you again for all the support, prayers, and kindness. Quick note on Poss. Heard from OBS this morning. She was scheduled to meet with Poss and his lawyer at SL's office. SL and OBS were there waiting when they arrived. Poss didn't even say hello, just sat down in silence. His lawyer started talking right away, complaining that the settlement terms were completely unfair, said they'd crush it in court and that everyone should calm down and settle this before things got ugly. SL listened quietly until he finished, then calmly asked if he was serious. She reminded him about the lawsuits, 2 of them, for sexual harassment based on Poss's abuse of authority. The lawyer froze and said, "Wait, what lawsuits?" So SL laid it all out for him, everything. That's when the lawyer asked if they could step outside to talk privately. While SL and OBS waited outside the conference room, SL told her she knew exactly what was happening in there. She said, "There's nothing worse as a lawyer than being caught off guard by information the other side has, and realizing your own client kept you in the dark. No matter how many times you ask him, 'Is that all you have to tell me?' he just sits there." Eventually, the lawyer comes back in, tells SL the meeting is over, and informs them both that he no longer represents Poss. He tells Poss he'll need to find another attorney, closes his briefcase, stands up and says Poss will be receiving his bill soon, then walks out. SL is doing her best not to laugh, but she turns to Poss and says, "Call me when you find a new lawyer, and next time, try being honest with them. If you keep hiding things, the next one will walk out too. My client is ready to be done with you and move on with her life." Then she tells him he can see himself out, and she and OBS leave the room. God, he's such a moron. Not much personal. News. Just that today is RS's 50th birthday. Things are going well between us. Slowly, we're getting there. I heard from OBS today. POS is now on his second lawyer. They had a meeting with SL earlier. Long story short, his new lawyer seriously underestimated SL. Tried to pressure her into renegotiating the settlement agreement, claiming it was too one-sided. SL calmly replied. So was the way he destroyed his marriage, multiple affairs and fathering a child with one of his APs. POS's lawyer claimed there was no proof of that. SL responded by pointing to the lawsuits and sworn depositions from every woman involved. Then she added that her investigator was digging into POS's employment history and had already found 2 more women he had affairs with, one of which allegedly got him fired. She was bluffing, but the look on POS's face told her she might want to keep digging. In the end, they folded and agreed to every term OBS wanted. The paperwork was signed on the spot. That same lawyer also represents POS in the harassment lawsuits, and they tried to pivot the conversation to those. OBS had to leave, so SL walked her out and later told me she was shaking her head at the poor strategy. Never discuss the second case right after you just got crushed in the first. Regroup, come back later. OBS told me she felt like SL was ready to go in for the kill. OBS is now back working with her former employer. They welcomed her with open arms. She spent the last week and a half brushing up on new software and tax law changes. She told me she hasn't felt this confident and hopeful in a long time. She hasn't told her kids the full story about what a POS POS really is. SL has offered to meet with them in her office, using the divorce as a cover to slowly introduce them to the reality of their father's behavior. OBS promised to let me know how that goes. Hi everyone. I just want to thank you all for your support, prayers, and the comments you've shared. RS and I are doing better, still working through things, but I'm optimistic. Someone asked about APness too. I checked in with SL and unfortunately, she's not doing well. While SL has filed to reopen the child support case with POS, that's a slow process. In the meantime, POS has fallen even further behind on payments. AP number 2 is burning through what little she received from her divorce and is struggling to find a job, mainly due to pandemic-related childcare issues. I thought I might be able to help. I shared her story, just the basics, with my year-round crew. Told them I'd match whatever they felt comfortable giving. Then I called SL to get her address. SL said she'd call AP number 2 first to let her know I'd be dropping by. The first time I met her was the day POS got walked out of the building. When I arrived at her place, she looked exhausted. We made some small talk before she asked why I was there. I handed her the money and told her to breathe a little easier for now. She was overwhelmed, said she'd pay back every cent. I told her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted. Then I asked what she used to do for work. After she told me, I handed her a job application and said, "If you don't mind boring office work, I could use some extra help during the busy season." I also let her know there's a daycare at the other end of the complex where our shop is. This was Monday. On Tuesday, she dropped off the completed application. She starts next Monday. Still no news on the lawsuits. OBS is happy to be working again and seems like she's really starting to move on. No word yet on whether she's talked to her kids about more of the details. Today is Monday. Last Friday marked 12 weeks since D-Day. Feels like a good moment for another update. First, our kids are doing really well. Our son came around quicker than our daughter. He accepted the situation and moved forward in his relationship with his mom. It took our daughter a little longer, but she's now going to individual counseling and has reconnected with her mom. In fact, she's included her in the wedding planning, which is a huge step forward. She's also graduating from college next month and is incredibly excited about that. OBS is also doing well and seems to truly be moving on. She's gone back to work at her old company and they welcomed her back with open arms. Tonight, she called to tell me that she and SL sat down with her 3 kids and told them the truth about what a scumbag their father really is. I'm sure it came as a huge shock to learn about the double life POS was living. AP Nora 2 started working for my company today. We'll see how it goes, but Carol, my assistant of 20 years, thinks she'll fit in just fine. She seems genuinely happy to be back in the workforce. And finally, RS and I are slowly but steadily moving toward reconciliation. She's done everything she needed to, some truly difficult and painful things. The polygraph, the written apology, the detailed accountability, tour that addressed every red flag and concern I had. Somewhere along the line, watching how hard she was working, how determined she was to fix what she broke, it hit me like a ton of bricks. If she's fighting this hard, maybe I need to step up too. Some things are worth fighting for. We're not there yet, but I'm hopeful. Thank you all for your continued support, prayers, and words of encouragement. They mean more than I can express. Okay, yes, sometimes there really is justice or karma in this world. Poss is either already in jail or will be very soon. Here's what happened. As you know, AP number 2 has been working with me for a few weeks now. She's doing great and has been a perfect fit. On Monday, she brought me a Starbucks and thanked me for the opportunity. I told her she earned the job, and honestly, she's overqualified for the position she's in. We chatted a bit about how things were going. Then she asked if it would be okay to take a few hours off the next day, Tuesday. She had a hearing with SL about her child support case. I told her, of course. Tuesday afternoon, she came back beaming. She explained everything, and wow, it was something. First, Poss didn't show up. The judge asked his attorney where he was. His lawyer shrugged and said he didn't know. The judge wasn't happy. He asked if everyone was ready to proceed and said they would go on without Poss. He opened the hearing with legal formalities, identified the case as X versus Y, then asked the attorney if he had a phone number for Poss. He did. The judge then asked SL if she had any objection to calling Poss and using the phone conversation as part of the record. She said that was fine. They called. Poss answered. The judge asked, "Is this Mr. E. Zhao?" Poss confirmed. The judge identified himself as Judge Wapner. Sorry, but yes, that really happened, and told him they were on the record. He asked why Poss wasn't present. Poss claimed his attorney told him he didn't need to be there. Bad move. The judge immediately called that a lie, saying, "That's not a good idea, to lie directly to a judge. Even though this isn't sworn testimony, it still matters." He said Poss's attorney had clearly stated he advised his client to attend. Then the judge questioned Poss for about 10-15 minutes, why he was behind on child support, if he had a job, where he was living, and so on. When that was done, the judge asked SL if she had any other questions for Poss. She said no. Then he asked Poss if he was okay with his attorney representing him from that point forward, without him on the line. Poss said he was. The judge ended the call. The judge asked if Poss's attorney had anything to add. He tried to argue that Poss was unemployed and struggling. The judge shut that down quickly and pointed out that Poss had fallen even further, behind in payments. Then it was SL's turn, and she went to work. AP2 said it was brilliant. SL made it crystal clear how badly AP number 2 had been shorted the first time around. When she finished, the judge said he would review everything and return shortly with a ruling. About 30 minutes later, they were back in the courtroom. In a flurry of legal speak, the judge ruled in AP number 2's favor. She would be receiving more child support going forward, and Poss would have to pay retroactively for the shortfall, going all the way back to the original judgment. The judge asked Poss's attorney if he intended to file a motion to appeal the ruling. The lawyer simply said that decision would be up to Poss's next attorney. After the hearing, he would no longer be representing him. The judge then added that all legal documents from the hearing would be delivered to Poss by a county sheriff at the extended stay hotel where he was currently living. And because Poss was over 6 months behind on child support, the judge issued an arrest warrant. Poss would be taken into custody when the sheriff arrived with the paperwork. AP number 2 was grinning from ear to ear as she told me all this. I was smiling just as hard listening to it. As far as she knows, Poss spent the night in jail. I plan to call SL today to see if there's any more she can tell me. All I can say is, it's starting to feel like he's finally getting what he deserves. As RS and I slowly inch forward in rebuilding things, I had a small personal moment the other day. It wasn't anything major, but it really struck me. I went to buy a new fishing license. The clerk at the counter asked if I wanted the husband and wife option again. Yesterday marked exactly 16 weeks since D-Day. 2 months ago, I wouldn't have hesitated to say no. But this time, I didn't even pause. I just nodded yes. It may sound cheesy, but it meant something to me. I'll take it. Hey everyone, sorry for the delay. People have been asking for an update about my visit to see Poss in jail. It's been my busy season, but here's what happened. This took place on May 12th. I called OBS to let her know he was behind bars and asked if she wanted to come along. I picked her up and we went to the jail together. He was clearly shocked to see us. Looked like he wanted to get up and leave, but couldn't. A corrections officer escorted us in and explained. The visitation rules, 30 minutes allowed, but we had to stay for at least 10. The CO reminded him of that and told him to sit down. Poss looked confused and asked, "Why are you here?" OBS smiled and said, "Just checking on you, concerned spouse and all." He looked stunned. "Really?" She burst out laughing. "Hell no." I laughed too and said, "You seriously can't be that dumb, can you? She cares more about what she flushes down the toilet than she ever did about you." The CO started paying attention at this point because we were both laughing pretty loudly. Then we both held up his mugshot. "Have you seen this?" I asked. "It's a decent likeness. Though you should have asked the photographer to capture your best feature." He looked confused. "Your tiny little dick," I said, holding up my fingers in a tiny pinch. OBS chimed in. "Oh, I can confirm that." We cracked up again. Poss tried to get back at me and said, "Your wife liked it." "Not really," I replied. "She told me the only good thing about you blackmailing her into sex was that you never lasted more than a minute." OBS laughed even harder. "Ain't that the truth? Good thing I had toys back when I was married to you." The CO started laughing too. I think Poss finally realized why we'd come. I asked, "So, what's your plan in here?" "I don't think. There's much demand for an IT manager who had to blackmail women just to get laid." He suddenly turned serious and asked OBS for a favor. I chuckled. "Seriously? Why would she do anything for you?" She said, "It's okay. What do you want?" "Please, don't tell the kids where I am," he mumbled. She laughed again. "Too late." He looked at me, stunned. "You called them?" "That was going to be my next call," I replied. Honestly, for a split second, not really. I almost felt bad for him. He slumped down in his seat, like the weight of his kids knowing the truth finally hit him. "Why would you do that?" he asked OBS. Her response was cold and perfect. I wanted them to know that their biological father was never a real dad. "You're not just a cheater. You're a predator, a manipulative man who blackmails women for sex. And now, you're a jailbird too. Add that to your impressive resume. You couldn't even be bothered to support the woman who bore your child after you cheated on your wife with her." She continued, "If I could, I'd find every woman you've ever used and every person you've hurt and bring them here, one by one, to rub it in your face." There was nothing left to say, so we sat in silence for a minute. I probably should have stopped there, but I couldn't help myself. I had to go in one more time. I told Poss, "You look good in that jumpsuit. Those are Burger King colors. Better start practicing saying, 'Do you want fries with that?'" Then I added, "And hey, if that doesn't work out, maybe you can have a long, successful career teaching typewriter repair at the Roco Club, School for Women." That one got a smirk, even from the corrections officer. Poss looked at me and said, "You're no Tom Cruise." I laughed and shot back, "There's another line from that movie that fits even better. You can't handle the truth, and you really can't. The truth is, you're a disgusting, selfish, little troll of a man. Short, bald, pathetic. You hurt everyone around you just to feel important. And the worst part is, despite all that, a beautiful woman actually loved you. You had 3 kids who looked up to you, and you threw it all away for some messed up power trip because you were always the last kid picked and never really fit in. That was all I had left." I had said everything I needed to say. OBS looked over at the CO and gave him a nod. He walked over and led Poss away without a word. The officer came back and walked us out. OBS, and I didn't say much on the way home. When we got to her place, we talked for a couple minutes before she went inside. She told me her kids were doing better. They go to family therapy every week. The youngest even joins via Zoom since she's away at school. She said she was glad to hear things were going well between RS and me, and it looked like we might actually make it through this. She gave me a hug and thanked me for asking her to come along. That was back in early May. I'm guessing Poss is out of jail by now. Just wanted to share a couple of quick reasons why we choose to stay and fight for reconciliation. A friend on Reddit messaged me weeks ago saying he hopes RS and I are still together in our 80s. That really stuck with me. A few weeks ago, I was at Great Clips getting a haircut. There was an older man sitting alone, waiting. His wife was getting her hair done. When she finished, he got up and helped her. She had trouble walking, and he gently supported her. She asked why they were there. He told her, "You came to get your hair done." A minute later, she said she still needed her hair done. He calmly replied, "It's already done, sweetheart." This went on for several minutes, her saying she didn't bring money, asking when they were going to the doctor, while he just reassured her over and over. He doted on her like she was his world. After they left, the woman cutting my hair told me they were both in their mid-80s, married over 60 years. He takes care of her all by himself at home. That's what devotion looks like. That's what love can be. Here's another story. Every year, the Saturday before Father's Day, my company shuts down for the day. It's sort of a break in the middle of our busiest season. We reserve a pavilion at a park, and I host a big cookout for the staff and their families. We also hand out winter bonuses, from the guys who shovel sidewalks to the ones driving loaders. Everyone gets something. In previous years, RS and I always did the cooking and serving. But earlier this year, I wasn't sure if that tradition would happen again. I'm grateful we've reached a place where we could do it this year. AP number 2 was there too. Like she had worked with my crew for years. She helped grill burgers. Like a natural. Just thought I'd share a couple good moments for a change. Friday's a big day coming up. More soon.